type of biofeedback, and we'll get into that later. I'll just give you a quick story.
Well, that's interesting that you said that. No, that's great. Let me just add to that. We've been working with people that have possessions or attachments for years. Dr. Lessin studied with Bill Baldwin, who specialized in exorcisms. It's a form of exorcism. It's not the Catholic one that the priests do, but it's a form of exorcism. So I've been a part of many of these sessions where we're sending them back into the light from whence you came from, and it's a fascinating process when you see people letting go of that attachment. Their whole face change, their demeanor change. It's like they're shape shifting, and they go back to who they really are. Because when we meet them as a therapist, we're getting the person that's possessed, right? And they may not always know they're possessed, right? They don't think or symbolize in that way, but Dr. Lessin will be doing, just regular. They came in for smoking or whatever it is, right? And somehow he can identify when the attachment starts to come through, and then he starts. He says, "Speak through, so and so, Carol or whatever our client is, without taking her over. Just allow this entity to speak through you. Use your voice, but you're not to take over her." And here comes another voice, and it's like when the voice comes through, the face kind of overlays over the client's face. So this other face kind of overlays over it. It's fascinating, and I didn't know it until I met Dr. Lessin, but I'd say we've done about 40 or 50 of those over the past 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, back to you. I have an invisible talking stick, so I'm giving you back the talking stick. Take it away.
I think it's important for the audience, for people in general today, to know that this isn't hocus pocus. This is science. This is physics. It's the latest understandings of our universe are energy. I mean, everything is energy. So we are energy. We happen to have a body, but that body is even energy. It's all kind of a trick of our senses. So these beings without bodies, because like when you sleep and you dream and you travel around perhaps, I mean, there's different ways, or ghosts or other real beings, other civilizations or worlds, because apparently they are out there. I think it's something that as we move forward and our understandings, this is what Dr. Putoff was talking about, getting the general population more comfortable with this, more to understand it better, which is good. Because, I mean, he's like one of the top scientists in the country associated with all of these, government projects. So you can't get any more mainstream really than him. And when I heard that, because you hear about jinn beings, right? The jinn, it's I guess more.
Oh yeah, the jinns, yeah.
Quran or whatever, these little jinxters or genies. I mean, that's where the word genie comes from. Jinn beings. So it's also the nature spirits, the devas. They live in the earth with us. And there's a way that we can not just, to communicate with them. These are some of our prayers. We want to call them angels or helpers or family on the other side. There is sufficient proof that this all exists. Though, unfortunately, in the world we've been living in, which is very focused on materialism and money and profits and so on. I mean, nothing wrong with profits, but if things are not handled properly, shall we say, there's no integrity, well, that's a problem, which we see today with this whole COVID experience.
I want to talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Go ahead.
One last thing on the possessions, for example, because I have a very real-world example. I work I was part-time with a medical practice in Washington, and we had a integrated medical practice. We had a woman come in who was a nurse, and she had seen, all kinds of doctors everywhere. She came down from New York, and apparently she had all kinds of weird problems. And she was like 35, And the doctors asked me to scan her with my equipment, and because they said we can't figure out what's wrong with her. I mean, she just shouldn't be sick. She shouldn't have these symptoms. So I did that, and the first thing that popped up on this equipment I use is it basically said there's another personality on board, another brainwave. And
wow.
It came up in like 3 spots. And I asked her, I said, hey, what do you do? And she said, I work for a nonprofit in New York City. I drive around to homeless shelters, and I help take care of the homeless. Well, a lot of these homeless have left, when the institutions, I think under Reagan or somebody, basically opened up the institutions. A lot of these people now, the homeless people, have mental illness. And because of these mental illnesses, they are susceptible or open to ghosts more easily. They got a lot of, that's why it seems like they have multiple personalities, or who knows what's going on sometimes. And she's picking them up because she's going to help them. Goodness. And they're thinking, oh, here's a nice woman, and bingo, her guard is down, and she's got all these ghosts on board, and she's exhibiting symptoms no one could make sense of. I couldn't tell her if she was my client. I would explain that to her. But at the medical practice, these guys could lose their license. So they couldn't say that. They just had to say, well, maybe, check on this or that, whatever it was. Okay, my story. I'm turning over the stick.
That was
interesting, right?
Incredible. Yes, it's very well. I've worked with people on that level, and Dr. Lessin has as well. So what you're saying is totally true. And people let themselves open for possession when they do drugs, when they drink, right?
Drink a lot.
There was a book. Yep. There was a book I read, and I can't remember the name of it. It's about 25, 30 years old, but it talked about how they jump in through your crown chakra. So you actually, when you do things like that, you open up your crown chakra, and these ghosts, these discarnates, are just waiting for the opportunity to come. Since they can't figure out how to get back into the birth cycle and be born again, they'll come in and possess people. So you have to really be careful about protection if you're opening yourself up, especially some of these drugs that are out there.
I don't think we want to scare people. I don't want to scare people. Look, there are a lot of people that have like ghosts on board. It could be your Aunt Martha. I mean, like when she passed and you loved her, and she's kind of with you, and it visiting
you but possessing you. See, that's the difference. So you can't open yourself
I'm just
to
talking.
Possession. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes they're benign. And it's kind of part. One of the clues though can be, there's an expression like, "Wow, I'm really not feeling like myself today." It might be true. It could be true. It's something to look at. That's all. Just be aware of that. It's like a virus. Look, it's not bad. Just got to bump them out. And today it's easy. There's not only equipment like I use can do that, but there are people that have skills like that. Right. So
and you can actually forbid them from coming and taking you over. But if you're already taken over, it's hard to separate and
Yeah, but again, I guess I come at it from the mainstream, the more general everyday person that really never gave this a thought, and it's something that really we should be aware of because it can help them.
It can help them. So this brings me back to Dr. Pudolf. Since he's speaking about interdimensionals and of this kind, he probably had some experience. Did he convey to you what he actually experienced? That has he had some interactions with ETs and especially interdimensionals?
No, he's not allowed to tell us that.
Okay, he's not allowed to tell us that. Well, both TJ and I have had experience with ETs, and I grew up. Ghosts were all over I grew up in a haunted house, so I had to learn how to deal with them growing up. It seemed that was a portal, and even now I ended up in Maui at the foothills of the West Maui Mountain, and this is where Kamehameha came through when he landed in the 1800s and killed everybody. So this valley and Eau Valley are full of, it's like Skinwalker Ranch, right? They call them night walkers.
Skinwalker Ranch.
It's like that.
Yeah.
I've got night walkers all around my property, and I will have people come visit me, and they'll go, "Did you see that? Or did you feel that?" Or I woke up and there was somebody at the foot of my bed. I go, "Yeah, I'm sorry. This place is haunted."
But even regular, how many people have just like when my grandmother passed, I saw her. How many had that kind of experience? When my mom passed, one of my daughters saw her standing at the end of the bed. That's pretty common, I think. To
very
have some
common.
kind of experience.
Both my mom and dad came to me after they died, both of them. So, I think people don't talk about it because they don't want to be shamed.
Yeah, but
crazy.
now we need to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Fine.
So, TJ, did you have something to add? And then we'll go back to Jim sharing his story. Are you on mute?
Yeah, y'all have to give me a second to get off mute because now you put yourself on mute and I'll talk for a minute. That's Janet's phone. It'll be off in a minute, folks.
Yeah, hold on. I'm shutting it off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Tom, when he died, my husband, folks, we had to deal with a lot of neuroscience and core concepts due to ghosts. He was actually seeing one of the friends that got killed over in Desert Storm with him at the last of his years, and so he went to a psychiatrist at the veteran. And, of course, he and I were big veterans and helped in Ohio County with veterans associations, and that's a lot of how I got back into festivals and doing this radio show was due to him and my mother being authors. But he didn't write the stories that we wanted to hear because he didn't want people to think he was crazy, but you can go back here on Blog Talk Radio and hear, because he was an astute CIA agent for President Reagan, and he was an assassin, and so he had a lot of beings around him. But when he was dying, at the end, the CIA came to see him as an agent, and that was verified by several people, including the hospital. But he talked about he had lost his right leg, and he was having not only seeing people, but the ghost limbs at his core, phantom limb syndrome. So there's a lot to do with neuroscience and studies of the brain and the complex brain neurons. And I noticed that the things that we did with the government in intelligence work, in on investigations, a lot of that stuff came back to haunt him in and out of country. A lot of things that Jim doesn't know about my husband and I, but Janet does a little bit anyway, because we don't share because of intelligence, and people just don't have a reason to know or a need to know. But that's another reason I'm covered under paranormal tonight with both Jim and Janet, and integrative medicine, because now I suffer from a neurological problem since I broke my neck and have titanium in my neck. So I'm working with a lot of people, and I would like to discuss further with Jim the intelligence behind the next generation in science and the future of metaphysics, quantum physics, and our new paradigm, which has to do after the COVID. And Janet asked me if we could mention something about that. So somewhere in here, we don't have a format tonight because I'm just meeting Jim for the first time, so this is an informal meeting. We have no agenda, but this is just open conversation between three metaphysicians. So I'm going to turn it back over to Janet and Jim and go back on mute. But yeah, Janet, I think that's interesting. Y'all were talking about ghosts and neuroscience and the future and, paranormal. And we do deal with a lot of television shows, and there's going to be more in the future, folks, including with my Psychic Channel network. So I'm going to turn it back over to Janet and Jim. But, Janet, you knew Tom, and you understand what I'm talking about. They see ghosts more so. I'm wondering. I'd like to just mention that I think that we all have the ability, we all have many abilities that inside the matrix, I call it, in this 3D dimensional reality, or the illusion, if you listen to some people. And I do. I believe in many dimensions, many universes, and I just really believe that helping the people I've helped, including my daughter passed to the other side, that there is a care given by baby boomers in our age now to come back and be an extended part of society at 60 and above, folks. So this next 20 years, you're going to see some amazing change. And I know Jim producing can help Janet and I in